Sex abuse in the Catholic Church. 15 years after the scandal first broke here in Arizona, what's being done to investigate new allegations?
We can't trust the church to tell the truth.
Everybody has their own story, and that's their story to tell.
What you need to know about the legal and moral obligations.
It is magnificently troubling.
Well, the Me Too movement has sparked a real awakening, empowering so many victims to seek help and get justice.
Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the Phoenix Diocese, still trying to right the wrongs of decades of secrecy and cover-up.
Our Nicole Kreitz shows us how the diocese is handling new allegations of abuse in tonight's 3TV original.
My memories are very clear.
Mary O'Day sent a letter to the Pope 18 months ago detailing claims of being sexually abused in her parish, saying nuns were involved.
I told him that as a tangible act, I wanted him to read my story.
In November 2017, St. Mary's Basilica in Phoenix sent her this response, calling it a crime of terrible proportions they hope was reported to law enforcement, offering sorrow and support.
We take everything seriously.
Ann Vargas Leveriza also read Mary's letter. She runs the Office of Child and Youth Protection at the Phoenix Diocese and met with Mary that same month.
So I've been in counseling for more than 10 years, and they picked up paying for it after my discussion with them.
So what happens next with these types of claims when an adult says they were sexually abused as a child and comes forward decades later asking for help?
If an allegation comes forward, we address it right away. Doesn't matter if the statute of limitations has expired already or what.
The diocese says they have an independent board that reviews all credible claims of abuse. The board is confidential, and they won't say who decides what's credible or how they reach that determination.
But when it comes to sexual abuse cases, as Anne was saying, the law enforcement is contacted immediately. You know, if there's a credible allegation.
In Mary's case, they waited a year and a half after acknowledging her allegations against their Catholic school nuns and paying for her counseling. And only after we started asking questions.
It is magnificently troubling.
The diocese insists there was no delay, that Mary later said priests might have also been involved, and that's why they forwarded the case to the county attorney.
You don't lean on technicalities if you have an allegation of physical abuse.
Mike Manning, former outside counsel to the Phoenix bishop when the pedophile priest scandal first broke here 15 years ago, says there shouldn't be a distinction.
Parents who trust the church enrolling their children in Catholic school expect the diocese would investigate and report to police any claims involving nuns just as vigorously as they would any allegation against a priest.
As much as I'd love to say we can trust the vetting by the diocese, you just can't. It's not because it's a bunch of dishonest people, it's because of the mistakes that were made in the decades past.
Manning quit after 7 months when he says the previous bishop, Thomas O'Brien, told him to stop cooperating with civil authorities.
This was the single greatest failure, the single greatest heartbreak of 42 years as a lawyer in not bringing this home. If you're going to be a good lawyer for a client, you need to believe in the client's good intentions.
These are some of the hardest cases to prosecute.
Yes.
Rachel Mitchell, Special Victims Chief Prosecutor for the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, worked those original investigations opposite Manning. She says priest, nun, or any clergy, while the diocese has a legal obligation to report any sex crimes against children, they are not required to do the same for adults disclosing abuse from their childhood.
I can understand why somebody from the outside looking in might say, that should be reported if you know about that. And I get that. You also have to look at it from the victim's perspective. A lot of victims do not want that disclosed, but they do want to get help.
She says our state lawmakers debated and decided against extending mandatory reporting for adult victims because you cannot compel a victim to aid in prosecution, and you don't want to deter them from seeking therapy for fear they'll be forced to report to police.
They may not have told their spouse. They may not have told their children.
Manning says while the Phoenix Diocese might not have broken the letter of the law, they're certainly not honoring the spirit of the law.
It is so important to have utter and absolute transparency.
Everybody has their own story, and that's their story to tell. when they're ready to tell it.
That we can't trust the church to tell the truth.
Tim Lennon is the president of the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, or SNAP. He lives in Tucson and just came back from the recent sex abuse summit at the Vatican.
I was really sorely disappointed.
Survivors and advocates like Tim have helped expose and uncover old church records like this one, dating back to the late 1800s, classifying clergy's sex abuse allegations a secret of the Holy Office, restrained by perpetual silence under penalty of excommunication. This canon law advisory from 1990 tells bishops where to send any incriminating files so the Vatican can give them immunity from civil and criminal investigation.
Until we break that model of cover-up, no community, no parish is safe.
SNAP is now working with attorney generals in 18 states to investigate the Catholic Church.
Church officials routinely and purposefully described the abuse as horseplay and wrestling and inappropriate contact. It was none of those things. It was child sexual abuse.
In the midst of the Pennsylvania grand jury report, the DOJ put bishops and dioceses across America on notice to preserve documents in an ongoing federal investigation. Pope Francis just made a mandate. All sex crime allegations at the Vatican must be immediately reported, but only to them. Another crushing blow to victims advocates like Mary, who say he is the only one who can compel churches everywhere to report abuse to civil authorities.
Justice will be when not another child is hurt.
Rachel Mitchell, as you know, was handpicked to help with the Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation hearings. I also talked with her about the biggest obstacles that keep victims from coming forward and how the Me Too movement might be having an unintended effect on trials. We'll have more on that coming up at 10.